This is Swim, Success with Music.
Yo, what's going on, Swim Team? This is Success with Music. I am Walt. I am your music coach. And again, this is Swim, Success with Music. This is a podcast for musicians, singers, songwriters, beat makers, music students. Yo, we are about that music life. Hey, I appreciate you guys tuning into the show. We've been away for a few weeks here. Wanted to jump back in and provide some content for you music lovers and music creators that may be helpful for you in your music career, helping you to be more successful in that music life. And I'm not sure where you guys are listening from. I know that we do have listeners from all over, but here in the Midwest, man, it seems like spring has finally come. It's been crazy. So it's like the weather's been warming up here in the last few days, which I'm so about, man. I'm tired of this cold weather. I'm feeling the warm weather, feeling driving around with the windows down and getting after this music thing here. So it's the top of the show. I want to go ahead and get into some interesting facts for today before we get into our main topic. So yeah, I was prepping for the show as I normally do, and I came across some information that I feel that will be very helpful for you and maybe encouraging for you in creating music and especially selling your music. For quite some time now, and for, many years, I've been hearing about music sales being down. And that's in the typical way. So when I was growing up, it was all about selling albums, selling tapes, selling CDs, that type of thing. And eventually, it went over to downloads. But now the world is all about streaming. And a lot of people have felt within the industry specifically that sales have gone away, that people are not really making money because everything is online and no one actually has a copy, if you will, of music like they used to back in the day where they would pay for that specific copy. And artists, of course, will get paid royalties off of that units sold or units sold. So anyhow, let me get to the article I read today on hypebeast.com that I feel is pretty encouraging for those of us who are selling our music. So let me quote a part of this article for you. Here it is. The revenue for the music industry has seen a huge increase according to recent studies. The music industry blog reports that global recorded music revenues has seen a 1.4 billion US dollar increase in 2017, mostly due to the growing adoption and popularity of streaming platforms. And that's the end of that little segment there. So yeah, man, it looks like music streaming is, of course, that's no secret, on the rise, man, by 1.4 billion. That's a lot of money. And if you're out there, man, and you're trying to sell your music, hey, it looks like streaming is absolutely the way to go. So if you're still out there selling beats out of the trunk of your car, maybe you should be about that streaming life. There's so many platforms online that can distribute your music digitally. So it's encouraging to know that music sales are up. It's just coming from the streaming world. So yeah, get after it, man. Get your music out there, share it so you can take part of some of that money out there. All right, so let's go ahead and turn to our main topic of the day. For today's episode, man, I want to get into more of a mindset shift, but I want to make this mindset shift more practical, if you will. So what I mean by that is I want you to think differently as a musician. I'm going to use myself as a case study as to why you should think differently as a musician. Now, if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, you know I'm a big fan of working something and working the thing that you know and just not relenting, just not giving up and just pushing as hard as you can over and over until you see results with your skill, with your competency, with your style, that type of thing. But I want to flip things around today. I want to talk about moving into new territory. I want to talk about getting unstuck as a musician. A lot of times we get in the habit of doing certain things a certain way for a long period of time. And if you're not careful as a musician, you'll find yourself becoming antiquated. You'll find yourself being out of time, and you'll find yourself not growing because you're not willing to adopt or to switch things up. So today I want to talk about 3 major things that I discovered about myself and what I believe may be applicable for you. So whether you're early on in your music career or further along, I believe having an awareness about switching things up, when to switch things up, will be very helpful for you. But I want to cover 3 areas that I believe will be incredibly important for you to focus on being an early adopter of the new school. All right, so let me talk about the first one here. I want to talk about marketing tools. As a musician, many of us will have to market our music. And when I say market, I don't mean like full on billboards on, the freeway, that type of thing. I'm talking about social media. I'm talking about some paid advertising, those types of things. When I started and went into that self-employed life as a musician, I used some online tools to market my studio, my business, my music production. And one thing that I used was a website platform. And this website platform, I've been with it for many years, and they've since, upgraded the platform and come out with different variations of the platform and different tools and plugins and things like that. And if you guys have played around with websites, you know what I'm talking about, where you can use a plugin for, let's say, email subscription services or plugins for an audio player, those types of things. So the point is, I've used a particular platform for many, many years, and I've just become adept and really skilled at using it, uploading new themes, changing out the images, all that stuff. So recently I was working with a friend of mine, and she wanted me to set up a marketing platform for a friend of mine, and I was just doing it as a favor. And she said, hey, listen, well, I actually use this other platform. And this other platform, I've heard about it for many years. I'm like, I'm familiar with it. I use X platform. They're all the same. And she's like, well, hey, you know what? Can you just set mine up on the platform that she was used to using? I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. I'll set it up for you, set the environment up for her so my buddy can do some marketing. Long story short, I looked at this platform when I set it up, and I realized that the tools that were there were way, way sweeter than the tools that I had been using for many years, even though this platform has been updated. The point is, I realized that had I been using this particular platform, my marketing for my music would have been far easier, and it would have looked a lot sweeter had I adopted this technology a long time ago. The problem is I never adopted it because I was so comfortable with using the tool that I've been with for years. And quite frankly, the tool kind of sucked. I knew about bugs. I knew that if I updated a plugin, it can crash my website. But I got used to simply patching things up, throwing a Band-Aid on stuff and making it work. I was used to my misery, and it's kind of like the misery versus the unknown. But the point being is that this new platform has been amazing for me, and I've only been using it for just a few short days, and I feel like a complete idiot for hanging on for so many years. So that's just an example of why you should open yourself up to using new marketing tools. You may be used to one thing, or your friend or your band member may introduce you to, let's say, one social media platform or one way of using a website or what have you. But man, you need to do some research because you may find far sweeter tools. And by the way, the platform I'm using, it's free. And some of the tools I would have had to pay for on my previous platform, just an extra plus. All right, let's move on to my next topic here. Again, if some of you have been listening to the podcast here, you know that I've recently updated my digital audio workstation. That's another example. For years, I've been with one software developer, again, sticking around for all the updates, still having bugs with the stupid software, crashing my system, locking up. Even though it had autosave, it would jam up and the autosave wouldn't work. It would suck, man. It was getting on my nerves. The customer service sucked. It was just a nightmare. But I've used it for so many years, and I knew how to make my get around the software very easily. So if I needed to load up an envelope, if I needed to do some mastering, if I needed to normalize something, cutting, pasting, importing, exporting, man, I knew this product in and out. I knew where all my plugins were, virtual instruments, samples. I mean, man, I was just an absolute master on this. And I've actually even taught classes on this software. The point is my PC at the time crashed and I wound up going to Mac and getting a completely different digital audio workstation. And I can tell you that the learning curve has really sucked. But man, this new software I'm using, number one, is far cheaper. And second, the functionality of this new software, it completely decimates the functionality that I had in my previous software. And it's one of those things where I held on for over a decade paying all of this money for software that was all right, whereas this new software was phenomenal. So the point is, don't get so married to the things that you're comfortable with to the point where you don't make that jump. And I'm talking about using your music tools. And again, for me, it was my digital audio workstation. Man, go do some research on that. If you record digitally, there are a lot of tools out there. If there's, let's say, a soft synth that you use or a plugin, like a plugin suite, check some others out, man. You may find that the workflow is far better. The quality is far better. The UI, the user interface is far better. Don't get stuck on stuff like that. You'll realize that, man, there's a lot out there. All right, let's go on to one more thing here. And this is going to be more related to actually playing music, performing music, that type of thing. I was actually talking to a guy that's looking to join the band that I'm in. So we were conducting this interview of sorts with this guy, and we're just sitting down kind of talking about joining the band, that type of thing. And I was walking him through some of the challenges I had when I first joined our music group. And one of the things I was telling him about is that when I first joined, I was used to playing a certain style of music. And I was used to playing, and I play keyboard, by the way, if you guys don't know that. I play some other instruments and produce with my digital audio workstation, as I mentioned. But primarily, my main instrument is keyboard. So anyways, when I joined the band, I was used to playing all of these super complicated, ornate chords, ninths, 11ths. For those of you who know music theory, that's just, I love those complex sounds, playing all kinds of crazy scales, Mixolydian minor runs, whatever. I just love that stuff. I feel like it just adds so much character to the overall sound of the music. So I joined the band and their style was anything but. And it's kind of funny. I'm the oldest guy, I think, in the band. Everyone else is far younger than me, to say the least. Anyhow, we get along fine, but some of the music that we've performed and that's been written for the band, it's a lot of really modern stuff. So there are a lot of interval synth parts in the music. There are a lot of melody lines done on synth. So for me, coming in with my super crazy, complicated, stacked, jazz-esque chord style, it just didn't work. And for their purposes, they're like, hey, dude, that's not really working out here. And that's kind of making it sound like a completely different style that we're not going for. The point being is that I was more proficient at playing this other style of music, though more complicated. But I had to learn this new way of playing, even though I've been playing for like many, many years. Ever since I've been a kid, I've just been playing keyboard. But playing in this way was a completely different mindset that I had to adopt. It wasn't that it was complicated. It was different. And because it was different, I'm like, I just didn't want to do it. The point is, I wound up following the directive of the group and, playing the styles and things like that. And as I learned the styles and the way that they compose music, I started to add in just a bit of the flair that I had, but it caused me to grow as a musician by simply doing things new and allowed me to see music and production and performance in a brand new way, hence expanding my musical vision, if you will. So when I'm producing now and writing and putting things together, I'm not thinking in this very narrow way. I'm thinking in a much broader sense with respect to me playing the keyboard and me laying down keyboard parts and tracks and things like that. So, I think that's a very important thing. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up for today. And I'm going to finish off these 3 tips here with a bonus tip. And this bonus tip is this. Don't sit back and research the things that I mentioned. So if you're thinking that, yeah, you know what, maybe you need to adopt a,